This episode of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast is sponsored by Caneswear. Caneswear.com is the spot where Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com, the best and most affordable gear for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Marlins, the Miami Heat, the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, all of the professional and college sports teams in South Florida. Caneswear.com has you covered. If you're in South Florida, you can visit the storefront at 2655 South University Drive in Davie. They ship internationally as well. So Caneswear.com, make it the place. It's the best and most affordable Miami Dolphins gear. That's Caneswear.com, Caneswear.com. And don't forget about Dolphins Talk Extra. Go to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk for additional Miami Dolphins content. You get extra access to our private Discord server. You get bonus podcasts covering the Miami Dolphins. You get off-topic content as well. We have live watch-alongs. We have retro rewatches where we watch old games and talk about them. We do off-topic shows. We have prizes, contests, all kinds of exclusive access only for Dolphins Talk Extra subscribers. So join us, patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. You can join the fun for as little as $3 a month. Head on over to Dolphins Talk Extra at patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. And now, on with the show.
Hello, everyone at Dolphins Talk Nation. My name is Marissa Marino, and welcome back to another episode. Today, I am joined by Ari Meirov. Ari is an NFL insider who also writes for the 33rd team for football. Ari also has a YouTube channel, and he's doing a podcast called NFL Spotlight with Ari Meirov. You can follow him on Twitter at MySportsUpdate, and you can follow his new YouTube podcast channel as well at NFL_Spotlight. Lots going on there. Ari, how are you?
First, I appreciate that amazing introduction, and it's great to be on here talking football, talking Dolphins, and you can feel football in the air. We're officially here. Preseason football starts next week. I mean, we have football in July. How crazy is that? So it's pretty awesome.
It is so awesome. Like, the endorphins are pumping for me already. It's good to do. So before we get into it, will you tell us a little bit about your new, I don't know if it's 100% new, but your NFL Spotlight that you're doing on your podcast, when guests could see it and all of that?
So yeah, we started it about a year ago. So we just hit the 1-year anniversary. I believe it was around a week ago. And essentially what it is I always wanted to do this. It's called NFL Spotlight. And once a week, I get a guest on the show who deserves more spotlight. Pretty simple. A player, a coach, an executive, somebody around the NFL who deserves more recognition. We just recently had Jacksonville Jaguars offensive coordinator Grant Udinski, who is just 29 years old, was hired this offseason, and he had 5 different teams pursuing him to become an offensive coordinator. And I feel like, who is this guy? Where did he come from? So we kind of go through the journey and the paths. We've had players. Our first episode ever was Tampa Bay Buccaneers linebacker Levante David, who in my mind is the most underrated player in football for the last 10 years. So it's a great concept, and covering this league for over a decade now, I've realized there are so many people in this game who are, people don't know about. We know all the recognizable names, but there's a lot of other people who make this sport so great. So that's the concept, and every Tuesday we have a special guest on the show.
I love that concept. I think that's fantastic. It's so good to get to know all of the other players in the league and who they are underneath the helmets and get to know the coaches. So what a wonderful idea. So again, everybody, you can follow that on YouTube at NFL_Spotlight. All right. So moving into Dolphins conversation. As you know, the Miami Dolphins are always a hot topic, it seems, every year. And there's been a lot that's happened this offseason. With the NFL world knowing the Dolphins had to trade Jalen Ramsey, were you surprised that they were able to get back a player the caliber of Minkah Fitzpatrick in that trade? And has there been any word on why Pittsburgh was looking to trade Fitzpatrick?
It's a great question, Marissa. And really, when you look at that trade, the NFL in the business world, it's all about leverage. And the Dolphins really did not have much leverage when it came to Jalen Ramsey, because the whole world knew they were going to trade him. Like, he's not showing up to minicamp. They told him to stay away. It was reported they're going to have a mutual partings of ways, even though they extended him last year. whenever that happens, that's usually a case of you're really not going to get that much. And it was, you got to give credit here to the front office for trying to figure out a unique way of making this work. And Pittsburgh had been looking for a pass catcher and another guy in their secondary all off season long, and they identified one of those guys as Jonnu Smith. So they really wanted Jonnu from the Miami Dolphins. And when those talks started, Chris Greer was like, no, we're not trading him. He's an all-pro player. We signed him as a free agent last year. He's under contract. It's not going to happen. Eventually, the trade expanded into Jalen Ramsey as well. And once it became Jalen Ramsey as well, and they were willing to include Jonnu, I think that's when the idea of Minka was also going to become a possibility. And of course, there was money that had to be figured out. But I think the Jonnu element was the big part of this. Once he was included, and again, Miami was hesitant initially. Once he became available in this trade, that's when the Minka idea became a possibility as well. And of course, that trade happened in June all of a sudden when the offseason is usually pretty quiet.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing we can give to Chris Greer, and Dolphin fans are a little hard on it, it's that he does do well when it comes to trades. He usually does well in that hand. So, well, moving on, recently Asante Samuel Sr. was on a podcast and he had some pretty harsh words regarding the Dolphins organization. And as you know, Raheem Mostert, I'm sure you saw, took a shot at the Dolphins organization after Jalen Ramsey trade, saying the Dolphins don't reward players who perform. And the perception seems to be that of the Dolphins isn't that great these days, with a few players leaving on not great terms. I mean, 4 of our captains from last year are no longer with the team. When you speak to people around the league, are you hearing about a poor Dolphins culture or atmosphere, or are you hearing something different and this has just been misconstrued by fans?
Yeah, I don't get the impression that the atmosphere is dysfunctional in any way, but I think one of the things that players sometimes realize, and every player in the locker room, they obviously their contracts matter a lot. And I think the way the Dolphins have handled contracts in recent years has been picked up by players. And what I mean by that is, yeah, they've paid some of their homegrown guys, most notably Tua, but they've also allowed a lot of homegrown guys to just leave the building. And usually in the NFL, if you have homegrown guys who become success stories, you expect to get paid. So when you see the Robert Hunts and the Christian Wilkins and the Andrew Van Ginkels and Javon Hollins all leaving the building after their rookie contracts, I think some players are like, wait, I thought the way this works is if we do well, we get paid. Why is that not the case over here? And then, of course, they see some of these other guys who were acquired in trade, the Bradley Chubb thing, for example, traded for him right away, getting $100+ million. Jalen Ramsey, Tyreek Hill. Not to say they're not worth it, but some of those guys getting another contract after when it was a questionable timing. I think that element of it in locker rooms, the contract thing, every single player knows what every single player makes, and they know where they came from, and they know all of that. So I think that element of it, at least in the agent world, has been picked up. And sometimes players just want to become a free agent because that's the best way to get markets. But once you become eligible for an extension, you expect at least those talks to ramp up and maybe get serious. And for most of those players that I mentioned, it was never really that serious. So I think that element of it is something that has been caught around the league. You really don't see it that often around the NFL. When a team drafts a good player, they reward him. It's just because drafting is hard. It's hard. And the Dolphins have, their drafts have been up and down at times, but they've hit on some players. And for whatever reason, those guys have left the building. And I think players do realize that. And it's definitely a talking point in that vantage point.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I know Dolphins Nation was absolutely flabbergasted when they found out the news about Andrew Van Ginkel and an offer not being on the table. I mean, that was a hard pill to swallow. All right, so moving on to the most polarizing topic of all of them, which is Tua. He is going into year 6, and when he is discussed, people are all over the map on him. Some have waved the white flag and have given up hope of him being what we thought he would coming into the league. Others still believe he will put it together and be a special quarterback. Do you believe in Tua in 2025 heading into year 6? Or do you believe all of his injuries are just too much to overcome to reach his full potential?
Marissa, the thing with Tua, and I realized this around the NFL, and Dolphins fans have experienced this. When you don't have a quarterback, life is miserable. And Tua is a good quarterback in the NFL who could lead a team to the playoffs, like we've seen. Has there been playoff success? No, there hasn't been that. But he has been there at least once playing in the game. And there's a thing over here with him where we all know about the health situation. And at times it's a scary conversation to have, especially when it happened again last year, right? So
Mhm.
that element, of course, is a problem. But when you look around the NFL and you really look at the Dolphins, when Tua gets hurt and you're playing with the Skylar Thompsons or the Tyler Hunleys or the Teddy Bridgewaters or all the other guys they've had, Jacoby Brissett, it's not the same team. Mike McDaniel has the success when Tua's under center. Now, do you wish the injuries are not happening? Do you wish he's more careful? Yeah, but football, when you're playing, things happen fast. Like it's moving, right? So it's unfortunate that it does happen. He's obviously tried all these different things to try to get better, and it still happened last year. But the most important thing for him is staying healthy. He has become a tremendous leader, more vocal from what he was his rookie year to where he is today. It's truly night and day. It's two different people. So he's really elevated himself as a person and a leader and a player since entering the NFL. The amount of doubts that were there when he came in and the way he's turned people's opinions as a player, like we've seen it happen. It's more about the consistency, actually being on the field and those type of things. And this year is a pretty big year because yes, he did get extended, but the Mike McDaniel's future could potentially be up in the air. Chris Greer's future could be up in the air. And if that's the case, whoever would come in next, who knows what their opinion is on Tua.
Mm.
So do I think he's a viable starting quarterback in the NFL? Yes, I do. Look around the NFL. There's a lot of teams out there who have no idea what they have right now under center. Look at the Giants, look at the Browns. There are many teams. Look at the Saints. Like, would you rather be in that position? I don't think so. So that's the way I look at it. But obviously, you want to see the consistency and obviously being on the field. And if he's able to do that, this team will be in games week in and week out.
100% agree. I mean, again, self preservation, huge thing for Tua and something we would all love to see. And you mentioned Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer. And of course, that's on my slate as well. Mike McDaniel is going into year 4 and is coming off of his first season where the team finished under 500. Do you view Mike McDaniel on the hot seat entering this season?
It's such an interesting question. And the way I look at this from covering the league for so long, when an owner puts out a statement at the end of a season saying you'll be back, that's usually a warning sign. And we've seen it many times over the course of history. I remember a few years ago, Arthur Blank, the Falcons owner, put out a statement about Dan Quinn, Thomas Dimitroff. They started the next year very poorly. They were out after starting 0-5. Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia in Detroit, same story. Statement comes out. Next year they start off poorly, fired during the season. It happens over and over around the NFL. It's the warning. It's like, I considered it. I'm not going to do it, but you better show me. And that's kind of the sense
Mm,
that I got when the statement was put out at the end of the year that both guys will be back. I think it happened on Sunday night
mhm,
during the Vikings Lions game. So, like, clearly there were thoughts about it going into that week 18 game, which they still had a chance in the playoffs. It was a long shot, but it was definitely in his mind over there. And he decided to stay patient because the reality is he, like you said, he has led them to the playoffs. He has revived Tua's career. He has had good atmospheres in the locker room, at least in the beginning, but you could sense some of the pressure and looking at the press conferences also, like you get a bit of a different vibe sometimes. Like the beginning years, it felt very like a lot of fun, a lot of joking around. I don't really get the sense that it's happening as much going into
mhm,
this year. There was the Jalen Ramsey exchange back in mandatory minicamp where he got fiery a little bit. So you could sense the pressure a little bit with him. So there is a scenario here where he's got to win this year and have a winning season. And this team, it feels like it's truly in the middle, like they're kind of rebuilding on the fly. So at least show that they're kind of moving in the right direction going into 26 and they'll survive. But otherwise, the element of hot seat, I think it's definitely there, especially because of that statement at the end of the year.
I've asked so many people around the football league that question, and you're the first person to reference that letter and things that have happened before. I love that little nugget. That is not something that I knew at all. When that letter came out, and fans were just like, I mean, already? That was so quick. Like, are you sure you don't want to think about it for a second? But yeah.
I'll just tell you, Marissa, like that letter that comes out, that's not like a split, 2-minute decision. That has been conversations within the organization with, Mr. Garfinkel and Mr. Ross. Like, they've
Mhm.
talked about this for weeks and weeks during the season as they saw everything unfolding. Which direction should we go in? Should we start somewhere else? Like, every team, no team will admit this, but they have a short list of potential head coach candidates that they're looking at across the league in case something happens. So I'm sure those conversations happen within the building, but I think they also realize, like I said, like, there has been success here. There have been positive
Mhm.
moments. We're not just going to press a button over here because we didn't have the year that we wanted right now. So some organizations around the NFL, they panic and just make crazy moves. They were like, no, we're going to stay patient over here because we have had success, and let's see what 2025 brings us.
Yeah, I mean that all makes a lot of sense. And talking about Chris Greer too, he's been the GM now for, I mean, a long time. He was GM for Adam Gase, Brian Flores, now Mike McDaniel. Do you believe he would survive a bad season and get to help pick a fourth head coach under his watch as GM?
I love that you mentioned the fourth head coach because when you don't have success, it is beyond rare to even get a third chance. And it's
Mm.
happened very, very few times around the NFL. So I would not be surprised if this is a bad year where it's a clean slate. I mean, he has been in Miami for 24, 25 years. That is a long time
And no
for
playoff
somebody.
wins, Ari.
Correct, and that's the big part of it. So clearly, he has an amazing relationship with the decision makers there that he's been able to survive this long, and they trust him. I know some of the key decision makers are not there all the time, so there's a lot on Chris Greer's plate. He clearly does a good job for them, but at some point, you want to see some success, and that is something where at least they need to be able to show that this team is again moving in the right direction. This last phase of the Dolphins was a very big aggressive push when it comes to the veteran market. We saw all the big trades, we saw all the players they brought in, they made the playoffs, there was no playoff success. It feels like they're trying to transition to this youth movement, and they've hit on some
Mhm.
players in the draft. Last year, Chop Robinson was one of the more under talked about, at least in the national media, rookies in the NFL. Like, they're bringing in some players over here who could be here for the next 5, 10 years. But it's more about, could we see the arrow pointing up going into next year and trust Chris moving forward? Or should we get a new vision over here and bring in somebody else? Because I'm sure they've realized, but there are a lot of bright executives around the NFL who have been waiting for their chance, who they might want to interview. So he needs to have a year this year where this roster construction, which has been truly, all over the place over the years, that it's moving in the direction where they're going to have success in the future.
100%. I'll keep my opinions on Chris Greer fully for a different episode. But yes, I agree. So let's ask this: if the season starts on the wrong track for Miami, and if they try to trade Tyreek Hill at the deadline, do you think there will be an active market for Tyreek, or do you think there's just too much baggage with Tyreek that trading him mid-season might be difficult? Because at the end of the day, we know if he goes to any team, he's probably gonna make an impact on that team if they're doing well.
Yeah, I mean, when this offseason started, and there was obviously the post game comments in Week 18 about he's out, the idea of trading him was nearly impossible when you look at
Mhm.
the contract. It was just not possible. So all this tweeting, all this trying to make things complicated. The only way there was even a scenario was if his contract somehow voided because something off the field happened, which there was a point where maybe something could have happened there, but nothing happened. So he's still under contract. He still has that contract from last year. So that was never a scenario this offseason. So going into this year, I don't think that's on their mindset. They want Tyreek to be part of this team. They want him with Jalen Waddle. They believe in that group, which has had success with Tua over the years. So I don't think that's really on their minds. Now, if they're completely out of it and there's a team who needs a receiver and now Tyreek is potentially available, and again, they're gonna have to figure out the contract and the cash payment because during the season, taking on that much cash is not an easy thing for some teams. So it's a lot of moving parts, but I don't think the Dolphins have that mindset. They really want to be in a scenario right now where they're winning. And this is sometimes the difficult part as an executive. When you feel like you are maybe on the hot seat, are you really going to trade a player who's going to help you win in exchange for future assets when you might not even be there for those assets? Like, that's going to be a question that comes up in that front office if it ever gets to that point. I think we should keep that in mind as well.
Absolutely. And, the Dolphins did make some other trades as well. And we were talking about that. They traded for Darren Waller, who actually was retired last year. And what are your thoughts on Waller coming out of retirement and what you think he can bring to this Dolphins team in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those moves where you literally turn over every rock to find somebody. And the behind the scenes of this is a funny one because Jonnu Smith's agent is Drew Rosenhaus. When he was clearly about to be let go by the Dolphins to end up in Pittsburgh, Drew was like, "Hey, I have this tight end, Darren Waller, who's retired right now, but he's willing to play just for you guys. Would you be interested?" And of course, Chris and the staff looked into it. They heard that Darren was in phenomenal shape, physically and mentally. I know he's starting the PUP list. It won't be a long last over there. But they were like, you know what? Let's bring him in. We'll trade for him. The Giants are going to get basically a free round up in the draft. And essentially, they gave him a contract which has no guaranteed money at all. So he's going to have to earn it to make the 53-man roster. So it's one of those situations where I'm from New York. 2 years ago, when he was with the Giants for that first year, in training camp, he looked unstoppable. He looked like he was about to have an unbelievable season. He would be the new big target for Daniel Jones, who he's never had. And right at the end of training camp, leading into week one, he suffered a hamstring injury and it affected him the entire season. He was not himself. So if he's healthy, this is a player who has shown he could be one of the top tight ends in the NFL. And I think Frank Smith is a very big part of this as well because he was his position coach with the Raiders when he became the star tight end that we all know. And he has been close to him his entire career, and he was a very big part of this decision. So the pieces are there for him to have success. Clearly, he's in a better headspace right now, which is a big deal. And again, it's one of those moves where it's low risk, potential high reward. And for this roster where it's at, it's not a bad move.
Yeah, I hope music to my ears what you saw prior to that injury, and hopefully that's the version of Darren Waller that we're going to get. So to shift from the Dolphins and just quickly take a bird's eye view of this AFC East, it looks a little bit different than it did last year with the Jets and the Patriots shaking things up a little bit. Behind Buffalo, because I just know that that's probably going to be your number one. Who do you think is the second best team in the division this season?
Marissa, I truly believe it's up in the air. I think all three teams are identical in a way where all of them have a shot to be good, but you also see the potential downside where they could just completely flop. I mean, I can make an argument for the Patriots turning it around, Drake May, a year or two, Mike Vrabel coming in. The coaching staff has literally flipped upside down from being one of the more embarrassing ones to one of the more respectable ones in the NFL. I can make an argument for them. The Jets last year, firing Robert Saleh so early, it just derailed their entire year. New coaching staff, they still have a ton of young talents. People don't realize. I could see them. And of course, we spoke about the Dolphins the entire podcast over here. But if you made me pick, I like going with the veteran team, which would be the Dolphins. So I would probably go in that direction. The other two teams, it's new coaches. Jets have a new quarterback. Patriots have a second-year guy who started some games, showed some flashes, but teams now have film on him. So I would always go with the veteran route. But again, I think these three teams are truly like clogged together as teams who could truly be anywhere 2, 3, 4. So that's the way I look at it, and it's truly up for grabs. Like there is no clear cut answer when it comes to that question.
Well, you did say if you had to give an answer, you would say the Dolphins. And so I think you're going to gain a lot of followers from our show by giving that answer. Okay, we've got a few more questions to wrap this up. How close is the NFL coming to going to an 18-game regular season? Do you think that's going to happen this decade?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the current collective bargaining does not expire until 2030, 2031. So there is some time, and as people might have read because it's truly all over the place, the NFLPA, which is a pretty big deal when it comes to this negotiation, they're in a hot mess right now. Their executive director just resigned.
Mhm.
Their former president JC Treader, who was the chief strategy officer, his current title was, he also resigned. So they need to find a new executive director, and whoever they hire is going to be the person who negotiates with Roger Goodell and the owners about the possibility of an 18th game. So Roger Goodell has done his media tour saying he wants an 18th game and it's great for football and everybody wants more football, but they can't just do that. It doesn't just happen all of a sudden. They have to negotiate that with the union. And as of right now, the union needs new leadership. So I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I'm sure Roger Goodell would love to sit down with the union, but like I said, the union right now has a hard reset, and that is going to be a true negotiation because the players are going to want a lot of things if they're going to give up, if they're going to add an extra game. They might want an extra buy. They might want more of the pie when it comes to the revenue. They might want to take away the franchise tag. They might want to do, there's so many different things they might want to try to get if they're going to add an 18th game. So it's not an easy negotiation. And like I said, everything happening with the PA right now, they have, as of this recording, they have not even hired an interim guy right now to take over the PA. So it's a long ways to go. If the original guys, Lloyd Howell and all those guys were still there, none of this blew up, I would have told you in the next 2-3 years, they would have started negotiating early. But because of the reset, I think it's going to take some time over here.
I mean, as fans, we don't care about logistics. We just want more football, right? I mean, just give us more football. But all fair enough. Well, Ari, I know you're busy. I have one last question for you, and then we're just going to do a quick lightning speed round where I ask you 5 questions and just off the top of your head. It's kind of fun with it. So, but before we get to that, with more and more second round draft picks getting fully guaranteed contracts, are we a year or so away from seeing every second round pick having a fully guaranteed contract, do you think?
I don't think we're there yet. The way it works is a drip by drip process, kind of. So initially, with this new CBA that happened, about the first 20 picks in the first round got fully guaranteed deals. The last 12 were not all the way there. And then every year, 21st pick got, then the 25th pick got, then it got all the way to 32 and it was good. This year, it finally trickled into the second round. And if you go back to look at last year's draft, the first pick in the second round, Keon Coleman got like 94% of his contract guaranteed. So it was bound to happen eventually, and it happened this year. And because I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but it went all the way down to pick 40 because there was a quarterback there. So we're up to pick 40 getting fully guaranteed deals. My guess is by next year we'll be up to pick number 45. The year after we'll be up to pick 50, then 55, then eventually it'll reach all the way to 64, and the entire second round will get it. So it's a drip by drip process, and this year was a big drip. It moved all the way down to pick 40 after being stuck at 32 for a couple of years.
Yeah, we had Jonas Savaianaya finally sign his, and we were super stoked about that. So, all right. So we are going to wrap up with our Dolphins Talk speed round, 5 questions with Ari Meirov. This year, going to be our 4th guest to do this. So 5 questions, just whatever comes to the top of your head, answer. There's no right or wrong answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. Question 1. What happens first? An NFL team based in London or a Super Bowl is played in London?
Oh, wow. We're starting off hot. I would say I don't think any of them are coming soon. I'll preface it with that. But I
Okay.
think a Super Bowl in London is more likelier just because the NFL would still start at the same time as it is over here. And they want to get that and they want to get that entire location all the way in on the NFL. But starting a new team, the logistics of traveling there is too much.
Makes sense. Will the Dolphins finish over 500 this season?
I'm gonna lean yes with a 9-8 record.
Wonderful. 3rd question. Will Kansas City be back in the Super Bowl this year, or will Baltimore or Buffalo, or hey, maybe even the Dolphins knock them out of the playoffs?
So I have not made my official predictions yet, but the last 2 years I've had the Chiefs making it all the way, which both years were right. So if I was to say right now, I would probably stick with them, but my official prediction comes out later this month.
Perfect. Make sure you all stay tuned for that. Next question. Better overall season in 2025, Drake May or Tua?
I'm gonna go with Tua because he has better weapons in Miami.
And he's like, and I'm on a Dolphins podcast right now. So, and last question. Which happens first? Josh Allen gets to a Super Bowl or Jalen Hurts wins his 2nd Super Bowl?
NFC is definitely easier, but I do think Josh Allen has been on the doorstep for so long, and I think he's going to make it in the next couple of years. I'm going to go with Josh Allen.
There we have it. You did it, Ari.
Great
Thank you so
question.
much
Great
for
question.
participating. Well, we thank you so much for your time. Again, everyone, Ari Meirov of the 33rd Team, NFL Insider, also has a podcast that is now out, NFL Spotlight. Make sure you check that out and you follow him on Twitter at My Sports Update. Ari, any final words for Dolphin fans out there listening?
I'm excited for the season. It's going to be very interesting. You guys have a blend of veterans and young guys, some guys who I think could definitely take the next step. So it's going to be a fun season like it always is in Miami. It's always intriguing, always ups and downs, and sometimes heartbreaking moments, unfortunately. But enjoy this season. And Marissa, it was an honor to be on.
Thank you so much. It was great to have you here. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe to Dolphins Talk. You hit that like button, leave us a comment. We hope that everybody has a great rest of your day, and fins up.
Hey everyone, Mike here from DolphinsTalk.com, and thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to take a second to smash the like button here on this video, and also to ensure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. We thank you so much for listening, and we know there are a lot of podcast options out there these days regarding the Miami Dolphins and with non-Miami Dolphins podcasts. So we do appreciate you giving us a few minutes each and every day to tune in and listen to all of our shows. Everyone here on staff, thanks you so much. And if you enjoy these shows, also please be sure to sign up for Dolphins Talk Extra, our Patreon service at patreon.com/Dolphins Talk, where we have bonus podcasts about the Dolphins and some shows not about the Miami Dolphins. We have a private message board. We also have a ton of contests where we give away really cool prizes, and it's all for the low cost of $3 a month. Again, that's patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. And also, please be sure to follow the written content we have up on our website. So check out the website, DolphinsTalk.com, each and every day. Once again, thank you again for listening. Take care, and we'll talk to you again real soon.